All right, guys. I don't know how we made it this far, but we are less than 24 hours out from my very first marathon. If you've been following along, you know that I've never done one before. This is certainly outside of my comfort zone, and I started training 8 weeks ago. Something I've wanted to hold myself accountable for and have something as a fun and challenging goal this off season that kind of mirrors the CrossFit competitive season. So here we are, less than 24 hours out. Now, with that considered, it's time to get excited. I just wrapped up my day here of work, and now I am headed to pick up some of my fueling for tomorrow. So I need to make sure that I have adequate gels, and I need to make sure that I have a final 1 and/or 2 that include caffeine. That's gonna help me get through those last 5 to 6 miles, at least that's the goal, and kind of wake back up that arousal that I'll probably need for that final kick. So I'm gonna go grab a bite for lunch, and then I've got to go pick up my race stuff later today. Today, the idea is relax, stay off my feet a little bit, maybe do a little bit of a shakeout run. I'm gonna keep my nutrition pretty light and make sure that it's all easily digestible and nothing that's gonna cause me any issues early tomorrow morning when it's time to start pounding the pavement. And before I leave this office, Revolt phosphatidic acid. It is our newest pill. Now, if you know nothing about this, I want to encourage you to educate yourself a little bit, but a quick run by. Basically, these capsules are plant-derived ways for us as competitive athletes or people who are interested in pursuing new levels of fitness to continue to build more muscle through more readily available nutrients to help us stay in protein synthesis. The idea, to put it in layman's terms, is that we're always doing something, right? We're synthesizing and utilizing protein, or we're using it to restore and rebuild muscle tissue breakdown. When we go into the gym, we break down our muscles. We've got to use the protein that we're digesting to build those things back up. But then it makes it more difficult for us to stay in a surplus so that we can continually gain and build muscle throughout the series of several days of training or throughout several weeks of training and nutrition. So for those of you that are interested in not just gaining weight, but specifically lean body mass, look better naked, that want to pursue new levels of fitness inside and outside the gym, the commonality there is that we all want to continue to get stronger and build lean body mass. As we age, this is what begins to become exponentially more difficult. Due to the change in our hormones and metabolism, a product like this helps us do that much easier. Now, the caveat to that is you've got to make sure that your day-to-day nutrition is staying in tip-top shape, specifically your protein consumption. Without protein available, it's not going to give you the same bang for your buck. So whether you've got to supplement that with a product like we have, like Refuel, which is our whey protein, or Reform, which is our vegan protein, you need to make sure you get enough protein to make sure that this Revolt, specifically phosphatidic acid, can do its job. That's how we're going to get those gains. What's up, guys? It's here. It's race day. Now, I skipped out on my morning routine just because it's still very early. But I'm on my way to Antelope Island, and we will get ready to run in about 90 minutes. It's go time. Well, all right, here we go. Minutes before the marathon. Now, to update you, before I get out on this road, we are on Antelope Island here in Utah. The course has rolling hills, so that will be a unique challenge in itself. But today, it is currently 48 degrees, which is a fantastic temperature to start, but it's raining. So that will create a different experience in itself. I'm excited. The nerves are starting to flow, and we're about 5 minutes before I get ready to start warming up a little bit and prepping for this run. But I will catch up with you guys afterwards because it's dark and there's nothing that you would really see. You are going to have to just deal with my summary after this thing. We're going to dive into how this thing plays out. Wish me luck. About to crush it. Well, we're here post-marathon, and I wanted to give you guys an overall wrap. So this journey has been an interesting one. I didn't get an opportunity to slow down film at all at the marathon because the weather was pretty much atrocious, at least for the first 90 minutes or so. And then when I finished, my camera was in my car, and I had no desire to walk to the car. Then go back and do some filming to recap it. So here we are, post-marathon, 26.2 miles. I'm ecstatic that I completed it. I knew that I would, but I'm happy that it's done, and I'm excited to share with you guys just a description of my journey. Never really thought I'd be signing up for a marathon, but was driven to do it. Trained for 8 weeks. Built up my capacity, made sure that even before the 8-week prep, I had like a base level of running because I was coming off of finishing third at the CrossFit Games. I got a decent amount of fitness, but my legs and body were not going to be ready for the volume, at least to run at a decent clip for 26.2 miles. So that was a big part of my preparation. Over the next 8 weeks, I tried to stay consistent with the gym. Didn't have great results with that because, of course, I'm trying to help run a business. I got a family, and now all of a sudden I'm running a little over an hour a day, and sometimes even much more than that. So the prep was fun. It was challenging. I dealt with some inflammation in my knees, and I think a little bit of that was just the exposure to the volume without, lack for a better term, but slow and organic exposure to that. It was more sped up, the distance and the volume. So for me, it was a good experience. Could have gone much worse. Let's get to the race. Like I said, for the first hour to 90 minutes, it actually poured and or hailed on us. Now, the advice that I got was AC. Start slower than you think you should. Now, the caveat to this course out on Antelope Island here in Utah is that it is a lot of hills. In fact, throughout the run, we had 1,100 feet of gain, which I think I'll be able to show you guys that through my Garmin. But, you know, it was one of those experiences where I listened to my body. I did the best that I could in regards to trying to be conservative early, and it played off for me. It paid off for me. You know, I saw several people on the back half of the race that I never saw in the front half because they were literally miles ahead of me to start in the first 13.1. And this course specifically was an out and back. So every hill that I experienced on the way out, I was taking mental notes like, okay, this is going to be tough on the way out. I need to slow down a little bit, make sure that I've got enough energy to come back. The things that I packed with me for the marathon was I had 5 Goop hacks, and I also had 2 pieces of caffeinated gum. Each one of those pieces had 50 milligrams of caffeine, and I strategically didn't mess with those or take those at all till the back half of the marathon towards the latter piece because I knew I was going to need that energy, right? But I met some really cool people on the run. I ran with a guy who pushed his 4-year-old daughter the whole time in a stroller. Amazing. He was running with me for like 2 hours, and I was still, just struggling to keep his pace a little bit. And then eventually I was able to kind of run away from the pace that he chose, not with intention. It wasn't like we were racing, but I just kind of was keeping my clip, and he might have slowed down a little bit. I think the hills were getting to him with pushing a whole other human in front of him. Yeah, my biggest lesson was how important strategy is. And fueling. There were countless amounts of people that either weren't wearing a Camelback, not stopping frequently enough for water, and definitely weren't fueling with like goos and or carbohydrates at all. My goos had carbohydrates and electrolytes in them. I had Reburst in the morning before I took the course. It was a grind, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every bit of it. It was extremely fun. And when I look back at some of this data, it's crazy, right? So I took like 43,000 steps in this marathon. My overall strain, let's see what the Whoop data says here. 20.7 was the strain of the run. My max heart rate in the run was 193. My average heart rate was about 150. Now, we know that the average heart rate on the Whoop, for me specifically, is relatively inaccurate. That means it just doesn't, it seems to be a little bit high. So I'm going to also go back to the Garmin to see what my heart rate was. Gain of about 1,100 total feet. My average mile pace was roughly 920 something. I finished in 4:05 the marathon. That's 3,684 calories that I expended during that time and distance. The heart rate data says here that my average was about 154. So my Whoop was pretty accurate. Now on the high range though, it says I only got up to 184, and I'm assuming that was on one of the dramatic hills that I faced. But my fastest mile pace was 756. I think that was clearly during one of the stretches where I was on the back half of one of these destroying mountains. And I was just kind of like letting my body fall down the mountain, if you will. It was very much a rewarding experience. Ironically enough, I spent 2 hours in zone 4. For me, I spent 1 hour and 30 minutes in zone 3, and I spent about 18 minutes in zone 5, which I'm assuming was towards that latter part of the race where I tried to push a little bit in the last 2 miles, but it was still a little bit uphill as well. So many people were just walking up the hills. It was cold and dreary, all these things. I mean, the hardest part of the race, honestly, was that my hands were of so little use to get my fuel out. Couldn't get it out of my pouch. I was having a hard time to get it out, and then I was literally just using my teeth to open things. Luckily, I was just drinking from the water cups for the most part, and from my Camelback that I wore. I did wear a Camelback, but it paid off to be prepared. Right? I actually started the run with the jacket because of the hail and the rain, and then I just took it off, but I just tied it around my waist, and then I had a very light breathable t-shirt on under actually it was one of my CrossFit Games Noble jerseys. It was perfect for the run. I had shorts on, or I had some tights on, and then I of course ran in my Hokas, which had been great. I had a great time, and I don't think I would have changed anything about it, especially being my first marathon. Now I say first because I think I will do it again. I think I will venture into another race, and this time I'm going to try to make it on a pretty flat course and really see what I can do when it comes to pacing. But I want to give a few of you guys that are about to run your first marathon or thinking about ever running your first marathon some tips specifically for you. All right, marathon tips for you. First and foremost, know where you want to run this marathon. Make sure that if you're running it in a terrain that involves a lot of up and down, a lot of gain or a lot of loss, that hills are tied into your training early in your phase. Think about scheduling at least 12 weeks out. I ran the risk of 8 weeks prep because I didn't really have any performance goals. I just wanted to do well. I wanted to do something new. And the timing worked out perfectly in order for me to kind of get back into some strength training if I want to compete next year at the CrossFit Games or through the CrossFit season. My next piece of advice is fuel, right? Practice your fueling strategy. Make sure that you're actually going to be prepared with things like goos, intra-workout carbohydrates, and you got to practice what you're going to do on game day long before game day approaches. My next tip is that caffeine can be your friend. So practice with some caffeinated gum. I like the gum because it's chewable. You don't have to swallow it. It does get into your bloodstream very quickly because it can do so through your gums, because it combines really nice with if you're staying topped off with carbohydrates in your glycogen stores for your muscles to give you the right amount of push at the end of your race. Lastly, what I will say is run slow. It is crazy how many people have reached out to me personally before I ran my marathon when I asked for advice saying, AC, run slower than you think you need to. I made an error in running too fast, and it happens to so many people. It's the environment, it's the excitement, it's the hard work that you get to now put to the test on this run. Now, did I break 4 hours? No. But did I set several personal PRs? 100%. Next time, gonna be a little bit more selective with the course that I choose, maybe even start preparing a little bit further out, have a better idea of what I need to do execution-wise, probably follow all of my same steps I did when it comes to hydration and fueling, and maybe we'll knock the next one out of the park. But all in all, marathon prep was amazing, and I got a sped up version of an 8-week marathon prep course that will also help you keep a lot of your upper body strength gains throughout the prep. Be on the lookout for that. Hope you enjoyed this latest vlog series, and now it's time to get back under some weights.